So here we go. Okay, so this is welcome to the licensed local pastor in the United Methodist Church. And we just went through our presenters. Our agenda for today, we want to answer these questions, right? What is a licensed local pastor? And we call it LLP for short. Why be a licensed local pastor? How does one become a licensed local pastor? And then who should consider? At the very end, we will have some questions and answer time. During the presentation, if you have a question, I ask that you write it in the chat, and then it could be that by the end of the presentation, it could have been answered, or if not, then we could answer it at the very end. All right, so this will keep us going. So we did our opening prayer. So let me first begin by answering some questions about what is a licensed local pastor. So a licensed local pastor is appointed by the bishop to serve in a local church. They are not ordained and they serve under the authority of a license. All right. And so today we're going to talk about licensing school. So that's to obtain a license, you have to go through the licensing school. But the license is actually given when there is an appointment and is given by the bishop. Okay. The authority is only within their appointment setting. Okay. So only when you're appointed to that church, you can do ministry at that church. And they're under the care of the District Committee on Ordained Ministry. So, what does a licensed local pastor do? Well, they perform the usual duties of a pastor. And so you see a list of them. So, in short, a local pastor answers God's call to serve the mission of Jesus Christ in a United Methodist local congregation to which they are appointed. They share the same functions as an ordained elder through the fourfold ministry of word, sacrament, order, and service, but only within the context of their appointment. So that is very different from an ordained pastor where they can serve in different churches. All right. So the question that we ask is, well, how is a local pastor different from a CLM? And how is it different from an elder? All right. So if you take a look at this table, all right, and there is one category that I did not include to just keep it simple. And under the ordained category, we have deacons who are also ordained. Okay. But maybe another time we can have another session on the deacon and what they do and the deacon path, how to get to the deacon path. But if you take a look at the four categories that I've laid out, lay supply, certified lay minister, licensed local pastor, and elder, you can see some differences. All right. So the first two columns are, lay supply, certified lay minister. What do you see them as opposed to the last two column, you know, uh, in terms of the first row, intent of category of ministry? All right. You can see highlighted in the red that the first two, lay supply, certified lay minister, serve as a layperson, whereas licensed local pastor and an elder serves as a clergy person. Okay. The difference between a licensed local pastor and an elder is that the licensed local pastor does not need to go through the ordination track. They can to become an elder, right? But they don't need to, all right? In terms of the training requirements, you can see that the CLM, the lay supply, really there's no training requirement, but it is a temporary. They're filling, a temporary need, right? So as soon as, if they are filling a temporary need as a layperson, we want them to take the training as soon as possible, right? So we encourage them to take the CLM training and do their continuing education each year. Now, when you go to a licensed local pastor, okay, they go through licensing school and the course of study, but you only could do that when it's been approved by your district superintendent and when there is a possible appointment for you from the bishop. Okay. And then in the elder track, the training requirements is that you have to go to a United Methodist seminary, which means an MDiv, getting your MDiv, and then go through the residence practice and ministry, okay, the RPM process. All right. So in terms of supervision, the district superintendents, are supervisors of all categories, right? And in addition, for the CLM, there could be a supervising clergy person. And with a licensed local pastor, it's really the district committee on ordained ministry has some aspects of uh, that supervision and accountability process. In terms of support, um, you see that the CLMs have probably the most systems of support here with the Office of Leadership Development and Conference LSM CLM. In terms of the licensed local pastor, there should be a clergy mentor. I know that Pastor Becky is working on this, um, as well as the circuit. And with the elder, they have the circuit as their support. Let's look at accountability. All right. Everyone is accountable to their local charge conference, means to their local church, and the DSs, right? Everybody has that. In addition, the certified lay minister and the licensed local pastor are accountable to the district committee on ordained ministry. And the certified lay minister also is accountable to the conference board of laity through the conference LSM CLM committee. All right. So I hope this answers the question, what is the difference, between CLM or an elder and a licensed local pastor? All right. So I know that there may be questions. We ask that you either write it in the chat or hold it to the end. Next, I want to ask Pastor Becky Weiser and to begin, why become a licensed local pastor? And then followed by Pastor Becky. All right, I will stop sharing now.
And actually, Mary, we're going to flip those.
Oh, okay.
Have Becky start.
All right, Pastor Becky.
Hi, guys. So I just kind of wanted to share a little bit of today of why even consider becoming a local pastor and a little bit of my story and why I chose that path. A couple things. First of all, becoming a local pastor doesn't stop there. There are actually more steps that you can continue. And there's actually a way for local pastors to become ordained in the Methodist Church by going through not only course of study, but then advanced course of study. And so this is kind of like one step on your journey. The second thing is the course of study classes are all affiliated with seminaries. So a lot of the teachers are the same. I happened to go before COVID, so I went down to Claremont with Betty every summer, and it was a marvelous experience. Not only did we get to meet people within an academic setting, but we met people from all over. So taking local pastor school as well as course of study supplements our connectional churches and how we can work together. For me personally, I found it to be an incredible time of discernment. I've been a lifelong Methodist. I'm actually fourth generation. My kids are fifth, and my grandson is sixth. So I got church. I knew church, and I knew what all of these labels meant because I grew up with them. And for me, I struggled. I wrestled a little bit. I'm a second career, maybe third career, depending on how many you count. Person, I came out of retirement to become a local pastor and ultimately run a church. And for me, it was a big process of discernment on how many of these steps that I wanted to take. And there were a lot of challenges along the way. But I will say it was life-changing. It was transformational, not only for me, but for my family as well. So Betty, what about you? How's your story?
Well, same thing. Well, I am retired, multiple retired, and had a master's degree, had not a real interest in wanting to go on for any other degree type thing. The other thing is I was in a small community where the church could not afford a pastor, and kind of fell into the CLM training and was asked then to serve the church. And it was good for me because I was on a retirement income. It was good for the church. They didn't, there was some pluses for both sides. But the CLM was the stepping stone. It was the beginning. I needed more. I wanted more. And probably the biggest thing for me that is not on that list, that is the difference between the CLM and the licensed local, is the sacraments. You have to go and find and have your sacraments blessed before, the elements blessed for communion. And I was very blessed to have some wonderful mentors and pastors who would come in and baptize and allow me to be a participant with it. But those were significant pieces of being a pastor. And that was a difference between the CLM and the licensed local as well. I think the other thing, as Becky said, it broadened my understanding of our connection. When you're taking the course of study and the licensed local, you're not just with your conference. And for many of us, it's almost within our circuit, because many of ours are in our circuits that have many rural churches. But it broadens it. And I have found colleagues and friends across the Methodist Church and not just within our conference. And I found that to be very helpful. The other thing is I was at a point, I wasn't interested in being ordained. I was already retired and had to convince the district superintendent and realize that I was 2 years beyond retirement age before I actually retired from my licensed local, reminding I'm over the age. But so it was not, and I knew that that was not a possibility. And I didn't feel I needed that credibility. So I think that there are reasons to do that, depending upon your stage in life. And as Becky said, if you are interested in ordination, there is a track that takes you through if you've done the course of study. And I have been, having been in education almost my whole life, I have been very impressed with the quality of the course of study and the licensing school in terms of a really rigorous, yet I think very kind and gentle guiding for those that are struggling sometimes in the learning field. So I've greatly appreciated that modality.
One thing I would add is I think that one of the other real significant differences is, as local pastors, as associate members, as CLM, we all bring not only our own personal stories, but we also bring our past professions, right? I happen to be a retired technologist, and I find myself using that skill all over the place in ministry, whether it's helping people with websites or bulletins or help make their form fill-inable. Betty and I just had that conversation. But there's lots of skills that you bring to the party that all collectively can be used to help our churches grow and, become what they can be. So again, it was life-changing for me. It was life-changing for my community. I tap now into my community in a very, very different way. I happen to be a chaplain. I'm a chaplain of the fire department and police department now. And so it will open up doors that you never imagined might be available to you as you continue in your discernment process and continue down your path of ministry.
And I would just to add one more thing is, as you discern, you may find you're comfortable in one or another of these places, and we're needed in all of these. And more, and I think coming through the CLM and the licensed local gave me a real insight, I think, and I hope an insight that we all need to understand is every person in that congregation is important and has a role. And wherever you are, God is needing you to step to the plate.
Thank you so much, Becky and Betty, the BBs.
The BBs.
Yes, yes.
Becky and
And
I have been partners with this for a long time.
oh, absolutely. Yes, we have many licensed local pastors who went through the path of CLMs. And so that is why we specially invited those of you who are currently serving as a CLM in a church to come to this session. So this could be a discernment process for you. All right. So at this time, I want to welcome Reverend Beth to share with us about how does one become a licensed local pastor? What are the educational requirements? Um, Reverend Beth?
Great. Okay, I'm going to share my screen.
Yes.
The educational requirements to become a licensed local pastor are you need to have completed high school and have either a high school diploma or a GED. And you need to be usually in the process for candidacy at the point of being a certified candidate. So what licensing school does is we offer the educational component, which must be completed to be eligible for appointment as a licensed local pastor under the Book of Discipline, paragraph 315(2)(c), which states that studies for the license as a local pastor as prescribed and supervised by the Division of Ordained Ministry or 1/3 of the MDiv need to be completed before a person is eligible to be appointed as a licensed local pastor. And I do want to emphasize that you need to complete licensing school before you start serving as a licensed local pastor, because we are one of the final components that makes you eligible to be fully elected by your annual conference. So what we do not license you. Your bishop and your cabinet licenses you based on the annual recommendation of your district committee on ministry and the actions of your conference's clergy session. And attending licensing school does not automatically make you eligible for a license. So we have people who come to licensing school and they think, oh, I'm going to be a pastor because I've done licensing school. And that doesn't happen either. It's a partnership process with your cabinet, your district superintendent, your district committee on ministry. But we are a requirement. And after attending licensing school, you will need to participate in the course of study annually to maintain the educational requirements for licensed local pastors. So who can attend licensing school? A certified candidate for ministry who has been approved by their district superintendent and expects to take an appointment in the coming year. Then there are some conferences, and it depends on the bishop and it depends on the district superintendent, but there are some conferences who send people they expect will be lay people assigned, which is a long-term lay supply category. But you can only attend licensing school in this instance with the permission of the district superintendent and with the understanding that you will not be appointed as a licensed local pastor upon completion of the program. And then occasionally we do have interested lay people who will sign up and their district superintendent says, I really want them to go. The 3 people we've had do that over the last 10 years I've been in the program have not finished the program. So people come, they think it's going to be just a fun walk in the woods, and it's not. It's a lot of work. So know that can happen. And then what does licensing school do, and who are we? We educate and equip leaders to serve churches as pastors. And we believe that's our core mission. That's what we do. That's what we focus all of our energy on. I work for the Western Jurisdiction Licensing School, which is the only licensing school in the denomination that exists as a partnership across various annual conferences of a jurisdiction. And one of the benefits of our program is kind of along the lines of what Betty said. We offer connection, not just connection across your conference, but across different conferences and also across jurisdictions, because we have people from all over the denomination who will attend. And we provide the educational material required by both the denomination and annual conferences to fulfill the theological and practical training requirement for becoming a licensed local pastor. And what are those denominational standards? Kind of what do we teach? We're required to provide 80 contact hours of education on the following subjects: United Methodist tradition, preaching, public liturgy and worship, mission, pastoral care, educational ministry, leadership and administration, spiritual formation, and evangelism. And we accomplish this at the Western jurisdiction by bringing our classes together by Zoom. Over the course of 5 to 6 weeks, you'll meet for up to 20 hours in Zoom classes. Then you'll also do independent learning modules. We do asynchronous or not online together learning. We do a preaching practicum where everyone preaches and has the opportunity to receive feedback from each other. And then there's a lot of homework. And it's fun, but it can be up to 20 hours a week each week in terms of outside of coursework. And I'm sure Becky and Betty both remember kind of the rigorous work that's required, and will attest to how much you both probably went through when it was in person, right? And it was the 2 weeks.
We did. We had a couple classes during COVID that were just starting to transition to online, but
okay, yeah.
So
yeah, it's a lot.
it is, but it's so much fun.
Yeah, it is. It is a lot of fun, and we have people make lifelong connections going through licensing school. And then, as both Betty and Becky touched on, after licensing school, which is just the beginning of your journey as a licensed local pastor, in order to maintain your eligibility for license, you need to attend course of study. And under the 2016 Book of Discipline, students were required to complete 4 courses a year to remain eligible for full-time appointment. So it's a lot of work, but there are a lot of resources to help support you in that work if that's the path you want to take. There are 20 classes in total, which will be completed over 5 years. And then once a person has completed the course of study, a licensed local pastor may seek to become an associate member of their conference, just as Becky, you talked about doing that. You're the associate member. So, and that is a great way to become a kind of permanent part of the conference and seek permanent status as a pastor in connection. And then you may also attend advanced course of study and become eligible after completing that to be a provisional elder, and then apply for ordination as an elder. So this can be a second course toward ordination, but I would always advise that licensed local ministry is a specific call. So listen to your heart if that's the call that you have, and don't try to use this path to get somewhere else. That's my feeling about it. What are the costs? At least for our licensing school, there's a registration fee of $20 and then a tuition of $980. For a course of study, it's a registration fee of $50 and then a tuition fee of $350. These are heavy costs. There are ways that you can get money. Every conference is different. There are different conference scholarships There are sometimes United Methodist Foundation funds. Some churches will offer scholarships to help people seek leadership education, and there are sometimes other conference pools of money. And if you are looking for where you can find more information, I will make both of these links available in the chat and you'll get them in the slides. But local pastors will take you to this website. What desktop to share? So can you all see that website there? Okay, great. So localpastors.org will take you to the Western Jurisdiction course of study and licensing school website, where you can find all the information about our programs, calling process, registration, and updates. And then of course, the General Board of Higher Education and Ministry offers lots of resources and will connect you to licensing schools across the denomination. And there are language schools. So Garrett Evangelical offers school in Spanish, and I think Perkins does as well. And there are lots and lots of options for licensing school, and then you can also use them for course of study. So we plug our local program, but we're part of the connection, so we want to make sure we share that too. I think that I covered everything. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Reverend Beth. That was great. Thank you so much. And I put in the chat that we will send you the presentation, the PowerPoints afterwards. So don't worry, you'll get all of this. All right. So we also want to continue with the thought about what does it take to be a licensed local pastor regarding the process, all right, which is so critical. So Reverend Susan Foster, would you tell us about the role of the District Committee on Ordained Ministry in this process?
Yeah, so I want to just back up a little bit and to state, that chart that Mary put up had that the district committee has a role in several places, and if you're currently a CLM, you would be meeting with us every year to continue your certification, and we're happy to do that as long as you're serving as a CLM. And we want to be in that conversation and relationship. There are many people, there are some people on this committee, on this chat, that have already met with my committee, and they can attest that we're not scary people. We're curious about who you are and how you are feeling this call into this service. But the district committee has a very specific role when it comes to certifying candidates and recommending candidates for a license for local ministry, pastoral ministry. So our role is to be part of the discernment. We would almost always, unless we've been meeting with you for several times as a CLM, want to have a get to know you interview, so that we would know your call, we would know some of the experiences that are leading you to feel that this is your next step. We'll ask you to write a paper. We'll ask you to have conversations with your pastor. We'll make sure that you have a conversation with your SPRC at your local church. We're the place that gathers all that information. You'll have to submit some recommendations from people, and we gather that information and help determine whether we feel we're relying on the Holy Spirit too, that this is indeed a call that you are experiencing, and that we would recommend you for that. There's some other steps in there. We have a whole document on them. A medical check and a background check and a psych eval, which if you're serving as a assigned CLM, you should already have. And all of those things are taken into account, and we talk with you, and we discern with you that whether this is a thing. And then we're actually the group that presents licensed local pastors to the Board of Ordained Ministry. Each of the
each of the chairs of the Board of Ordained Ministry take a form about you to the full Board of Ordained Ministry, and ask for, if and present our recommendation to the full board, and then the board recommends that person to the clergy session, and the clergy session then votes on whether someone would be received as a licensed local pastor. And then, as Mary has mentioned, you don't have a license until there's an appointment. Until you're actually appointed to a church or to a ministry, because there are some ways in which licensed local pastors are used in other ways, very rarely, but it can happen. But all of that is then is in the hands of the cabinet and the bishop doing the appointments. So that's like the really broad outline. But what I would say is if you're considering, if you're currently a CLM and you are considering going towards licensing, that you need to have a conversation with your DS. You need to have and also, let your district chair know that you would like to be on the schedule at some point in the coming months to begin this conversation.
I would also add to all of those steps Susan just mentioned, there's a whole lot of prayer over you that also occurs. Each and every one of those steps, you're prayed for by name, and there's a lot of heart. This stuff.
There's a lot, and as I mentioned, there's a lot of people that you're having this conversation with. It isn't just all in your head, or just all in your head with your, there is an attempt to make sure that we're not in an echo chamber, that we are hearing the fullness of the call being revealed in community, because it is a significant step. I wouldn't, it's to ask for this and to take on the responsibility. So.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Reverend Susan. This is really good information, because now you know that there are certain people you must get connected with. And one of those is your district committee chair on ordained ministry and your district superintendent, right? As well as in your local church, your SPRC, or if you're CLM serving, well, let me leave that for another moment. But at this point, I want to invite District Superintendent Samuel Hong to kind of give his perspective on who should consider this, and give some of his insights. Okay.
Okay,
right.
Who should consider this path? It's basically everybody.
Okay.
A call for service and leadership in ministry, as you know, is for everybody. And it is not only for those who want to be pastors or missionaries. Every baptized Christian has a call from God and needs to actively discern it and to best serve God's church. God may have put into your heart a special desire to develop your talent and leadership in a given area of ministry without pursuing ordained ministry. These areas may include every area: Christian education, music ministry, IT ministry, kitchen ministry, etc. You name it, and all of them can be a valid ministry area in which you can fulfill your call as a baptized Christian. But of course, you will need necessary trainings, whether official or unofficial. Our leadership department, led by Mary, has worked to develop appropriate courses to assist you in discerning, developing, and fulfilling your call through the incremental stages of lay servant courses, lay speaker courses, and lay minister courses. While engaging with these trainings, you may feel called to serve as a pastor of a church, but a regular seminary education may not be an option for you, and you do not wish to be ordained either for now. Then you may want to consider becoming a licensed local pastor. And this is a different category of a licensed local pastor, which is kind of transitional because this person will soon transition into the status of commissioning a year or 2 years afterwards, and then an ordination. But we are talking about this licensed local pastor who will continue on this status. Two routes becoming a local pastor may be mentioned. I would name this transitional local pastor. You get a seminary education, whether in person or through online, for 3 years or 5 years. While doing it, you can become a licensed local pastor. And after finishing your seminary education, you can be commissioned and then later ordained. Or there is another route that we are considering now. You receive a local pastor's license through the help of the District Committee on Ordained Ministry, and receive an appointment by the bishop. And then you will be directed to enroll at a licensing school. And then later the course of studies program. This will take 5 years or even 10 years, according to your situation. And after graduating from this program, you can stay with this status until retirement age. Usually it is 72. And even after retirement age, some licensed local pastors are asked to continue to serve because when we do not have other options. Or you could apply for an associate membership as a clergy in our annual conference. Or even there is a track to take on if you want to become an elder later. And how to become a licensed local pastor? First, speak to your pastor, and you need to read the book called The Christian as Minister. This is online material provided by the higher education, so you can just Google it and can find it, and you can read what's in there. So you need to read this book with your pastor. The primary purpose is to help you discern and clarify your call. Then you need to receive recommendation from your church conference for the candidates for ministry. Of course, before this, you need to meet with the USPRC and receive their recommendation, then recommendation from your church conference. Then I get the information, and I will ask, DS will ask District Committee on Ordained Ministry to call you for an interview to begin your candidates process. And that's about it. And you can follow the rest of the process in our annual conference candidacy process that you will be provided with.
Right. Thank you so much. I want to give you the link to the candidacy process sheet that DS Hong just mentioned. So if you click on the link that is in your chat that I just sent, you should be able to get to it. So, and you will find that it's a bunch of steps. All right, it is quite a process. And so it is really important for you to understand that process, to have the sheet and go through the process if you are interested in pursuing the licensed local pastor route. All right. Many of you are in the already serving as a CLM or as a lay supply. So I guess one of my questions, DS Hong, if a person is serving, leading a congregation as a CLM, how do they do the Christian as minister? With whom do they do it? Is it with their candidate or, I'm sorry, with their mentor or some other clergy or what?
Yeah, optimally, this person is still a laity, then this person has his or her home church, and that pastor needs to work with this person. If none is somehow is available, then yeah, ask your DS to designate somebody.
All right. Thank you. Yes. All right. So that is a question, I think, that the answer that I think some of you may find helpful, right? So it's your home church pastor, or if your home church pastor is not available, ask your DS for a pastor to work with you. Right. Okay. We're now at the point of question and answer. What are the questions? Chai, did you see any questions in the chat that we haven't answered?
I saw one about retirement, but DS Hong has already addressed that.
Okay. All right. Retirement age 72. Can you serve past that age?
Yeah,
It
of course.
seemed to,
As
yes.
long as you are strong enough, even 90, you can serve.
All right. Okay. All right. Other questions? And you can either, let's see, do I see everybody? You can ask a question, raise your hand, use the raise hand gesture at the bottom under more, there's raise hand. Yes, or you could just speak out your question. Unmute and speak out your question.
Angela, please go ahead.
Angela, please.
Yes, thank you for having me. And I just want a clarification. For the licensed pastor, it only takes 5 to 6 weeks to complete.
The licensing school, you mean?
Yeah.
Beth, do you want to answer that?
Yes, licensing school only takes 5 to 6 weeks to complete.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then after that, you're expected to enroll in the course of study, correct?
That would be if you want to continue as an elder, then you go to the course or no?
No, course of study is required for licensed local pastors to remain as active licensed local pastors.
To remain. Oh.
Yeah,
So you say two.
yeah,
Oh.
yeah, let me clarify. Say you are a half-time licensed local pastor for a church, and you need to enroll like 2 courses a year to be remaining to serve as a local pastor. Some pastors have some situations where you cannot attend for that semester because you are sick or some other. Yeah, it'll be okay. But the intention is that you should stay in the educational program. So half time you continue 2 courses, then it'll take 10 years. You think about that.
Mm.
So you can continue to serve as a licensed local pastor and make progress toward your course of study.
Okay.
To clarify, I think if you think about that as kind of continuing education, that you're kind of keeping up and getting a little bit more information each time. I think I saw it that way, and almost a recharge sometimes.
I like that language, continue education. So that's what we do in our license. We do continue education. So that's what the course study is all about. Okay. And we pay one time, right?
Yeah, each time.
Each time we do it. Okay.
And
Thank
also
you
it's
so
an
much.
intensive course. So you can just attend like 1 week or 2 weeks at a time.
Okay.
As far as the fees go, and I don't know, usually there are some opportunities for scholarships to help underwrite some of those costs as well. Again, if you are assigned. there are ways to help offset some of those costs. You probably are still going to have some costs on your own, but
And if you're not assigned, you pay out of pocket? All of it? And
Yes.
you
I would,
still apply?
yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm guessing, and I mean, it just, unless you're really, the motivation to me is being able to serve in a congregation. And then that gave me actually the tools to continue to be better. So,
Right. Mhm.
Reverend Beth, there's a question about from Caitlin. Would you please respond?
Okay, what if
So-
we are still discerning seminary? Could we go to licensing school while we are in the discernment process, or do we need to be decided before we enroll?
So licensing school is a great option for you if you are in the midst of discerning. We have a lot of people who come through who are not sure that they want to be ordained pastors or they want to go to seminary, and kind of use this as a clarifying process. So it is possible. And I would say the costs do start to add up, right? So if you are sure that seminary is the path you want to take, we would definitely always recommend you do that. But yes, absolutely, you can use this as a discernment process.
And
I
my
wanna-
yeah, Susan.
Reverend-
Go ahead.
We currently have people in our process that are, have a complicated educational background who have done it this way, right? Like we're willing to appoint them where as licensed locals, but we're not sure they have quite enough foundation in United Methodism. And so this is one of the ways we do that. And just sometimes people just, it's like Caitlin's saying, they're just not quite sure. I would recommend, doing licensing school to see if the coursework you think, if you're, it's a good taste of what seminary would be like.
We also have people who have gone to seminary and remained local pastors by choice. Again, there's this discernment process that do you want to become an ordained elder and what that means for you, versus maintaining, just remaining a local pastor. But because they really loved the education, they did go forth and get a full seminary education.
Yes. Thank you for reminding me of that one, Becky.
Dear Samuel, you wanted to add something?
Yeah. On the list you presented, I did completed those, and I am now currently enrolled to one of the schools. What will be my next step? If you have finished all the courses of course of studies program, then even in the say you finished half of the course of studies, and you are enrolling in one of our schools, then according to situation, some courses can be credited to your schoolwork, and this person could ask for commissioning. But in terms of education requirement, that will be decided by higher education. So when you do interview with your district committee on ordained ministry, a person in that committee will ask the higher education to check your educational requirements. And if all of those courses and requirements are met, then you can take the next step, which is will be commissioning.
You also have to have a bachelor's for that, by the way.
Yeah, that's right.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
I would
ahead,
also
Mary.
suggest like going through that the candidacy process sheet that I gave you the link for, and just follow those steps. Okay.
Reverend Beth, there's a question about tuition.
Oh, yes. So the tuition costs that we presented, so Every time you take that covers all of licensing school, $1,000 to go to licensing school, and then it's $400 a course for each class that you take with course of study. So it doesn't cover like a semester of tuition. Each course costs that much.
I do know that in our conference that if you are a licensed local pastor taking course of study courses, there are scholarships that you can apply for through the ministerial education grant. And so there is help for that, for the licensing, for the course of study courses. Any other questions? All right. How many of you are thinking that this may be something you want to pursue after you heard this presentation? Okay, so I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 or 5 hands. Okay, great. Yeah, 6, 7. Okay, I see a number. All right, so
It's a yes, but I can't get my hand up. I'm sorry.
that's okay. That's okay. We are we are right up at the hour. And so I just encourage those of you who are interested in pursuing this way, the local pastor way, that you review the presentation that I will send out. Take a look at the CANV process sheet and be in contact with your district superintendent. I think that would be the first step, especially those of you who are serving in the as a CLM right now in your church, and then from there, then get in touch with the through your DS to get in touch with the district committee on ordained ministry chair. All right. So, any last minute questions? All right. Well, if not, then we thank you so much for attending. And I look forward to hearing from some of you if you're interested in this path. And we can also give presenters, would you mind if, especially our 2 local pastors, would you mind if I give your email out in case people want to have more discussions about, like what is it really like? That's usually a good thing for people if they're still discerning. All right. Well, thank you so much. And we have recorded this session, so we could send it to you. Those of you who have registered for this, we will send it to you. All right. I want to give a big hand to all of our presenters and for being with us and being so generous with your time and with your sharing. This is wonderful. And thank you again. We thank you for attending, and best of all that God has in store for you. And we hope to meet sometime, whether it's on email, Zoom, or in person. So thank you.